Hello, and welcome to the Catching the Octopus podcast. Here, we will explore how connecting inward gives us an advantage outward. We openly talk about the obstacles and challenges and difficulties that life throws our way and how they become moments of gratitude and things that can benefit us when we look back on our lives. I'm your host, Naomi Hurley, and it is my mission to bring you top quality guests that will share with you openly their obstacles and also the techniques they use to go inward that strengthens the way that they serve themselves and others at the highest level. Thank you for joining. Let's get started. So welcome to our Catching the Octopus podcast. In today's episode, we have Geoff Stewart. He's a superintendent of West Australian Police. And Geoff has a really strong leadership background in remote and regional policing environments, addressing issues of national significance, including alcohol, violence, protests, emergency management, and other issues affecting the safety, security, and health of communities and police. He's known for leading others to find and implement innovative solutions that best convert strategic intention into operational outcomes in that frontline policing environment. So joining WA Police Force in 1978 as a cadet and graduating from the academy in 1981, he has enjoyed a diverse range of roles in the metropolitan and regional areas, including traffic, general duties, forensic ballistics, weapons and tactics training, counter-terrorism, close personal protection, marine and land search and rescue, officer in charge at remote, regional and metropolitan police stations ranging from 2 personnel to over 200, and district management in a senior role. So he's been recognised for successfully leading the district response to organised crime and outlaw motorcycle gangs in the Southwest District in 2014 and to 2015. He has received Australian Crime and Violence Prevention Awards for planning police and community responses to large-scale events, received commendation from the WA Police Force Executive for his role as a close personal protection deployment commander for CHOGM in 2011, and his role as a police forward commander in one of the largest bushfires in Western Australia's history during 2015. Geoff was a visiting fellow at the Australian Institute of Police Management in New South Wales in 2016 and delivered leadership programs to multi-agency and jurisdictional organisations in Australia and Southeast Asia. In 2017, he was an Assistant Divisional Officer at Professional Development Division, WA Police Academy, managing the coordination, development and delivery of professional development programs to employees. He was promoted to superintendent in 2018 to lead the new state custody coordination and transformation division in the operations support portfolio. And in September 2019, returned to regional WA as the district superintendent for the Southwest District. In addition to this role, he continues to be extremely active in the leadership learning arena and called on regularly to speak or facilitate on learning programs and events around leading self and others, creating growth mindsets amongst individuals and teams. And I actually met Geoff as part of a leadership program, and that sort of led me to asking him to jump on this podcast. So Geoff has a Diploma of Policing, Advanced Diploma of Business Management, and Graduate Certificate in Applied Management. He's been awarded the West Australian Police Force Service Medal, National Police Service Medal, National Medal, Australian Defence Medal, Commissioner's Medal for Excellence, and was awarded the Australian Police Medal in the Australia Day Honours List in 1999. Geoff is passionate about the welfare of the police family and has been a board member of WA Police Legacy since 2008. And he is human and is married to Helen, has 4 kids, and passionately follows the West Coast Eagles AFL team. Welcome, Geoff. Thank you very much for coming along.
Gee, that's all we got time for.
Yeah.
And I didn't know you were going to read it all out. You're just going to suck out that I'm a copper and I follow the Eagles. So, yeah.
Well, maybe you should have done the bio because that was like a good summary, right?
Yeah.
So, Geoff, I suppose to start off with, why do you do what you do?
Well, I did be a copper because it's the best job in the world.
Yeah, right.
And I always tell everyone that I feel sorry for anyone that's not wearing one of these blue shirts, and it has been the best job in the world for me. I joined, gee, when you say I joined in the 70s, that's a long time ago, isn't it? And that was a day in the old platform shoes and big collars and stuff like that. But no, look, I just love this job. It's different every day. I've got to work overseas, over east, in remote communities, in the desert, in mining towns, in crayfishing towns, looking after VIPs, the Pope and Royal Family, and in some of the early stuff I did, and ride motorbikes. I couldn't believe I was 20 years old and they said, here's a 750cc motorcycle, go and have fun. And so I've had a ball, and I do it because I love helping people. And I think I got that from my mum, actually. So my mum's very community minded, and I think it's in the genes, and I do it because I love it.
Yeah, and look, your love of helping people is really evident in the Southwest Leaders program that I know you're instrumental in creating and facilitating. What took you into there? What led to that?
Well, it's in the bio that you read out, it said that I went to New South Wales in 2016, and I went over there as a visiting fellow to the Australian Institute of Police Management, that's responsible for executive leadership facilitation from all levels, from junior roles up to commissioner and the like. And I got to live over there and work there for 12 months. And at that stage, I've been in the job for 30 some years, and I thought, and I've been a manager. I'll call it a manager at a police station and the like. And I went there as a student in 2010 for 3 weeks, and did a program over there. And like everyone else, came back and said, that was the best thing I ever did. They actually take you apart and put you back together with a different lens on about self more than anything. And so I wanted to go back there again, not knowing that I'd have the opportunity to go back there and work there. So I didn't really consider that I was really leading until 2016. I went over there and learned so much, more so about myself, but about what's really important in leading teams and organisations. So that's why I do what I do now. In addition to being a district superintendent, I love learning more just by engaging in conversations like this, and just helping others have those connections and have those conversations. It's the easiest and the best way to learn.
Yeah, and I love when you say that, because some leaders are naturally leading throughout their lives, like without realizing it. But I found, even with myself in the early days, and I was elevated into leadership positions, I kind of was leading for me rather than for my team. And it wasn't until I did that growth and development and looked inside that I was like, hang on, I'm meant to serve. This isn't about how good I look. This is about making them great. And then I just naturally look good, right? That's the theory behind it.
Yeah, exactly. We had a meeting with a heap of my sergeants the other day, and you throw the question out, who are the best leaders you've ever worked for? And and I love it when people name the people, and you say, what was it about them? And they'll talk about in service of others, the way they actually communicated, the way they had credibility and trust. No one ever says the best leader I ever had was some, bean counter, or with all due respect to bean counters out there, but none of them recognise the technical value of what they did. Yeah. It always came back to their people skills as being the best leaders they ever worked for. People love working for them. And one of the things I always say is about, the best leaders are the ones that do something because they want to, not because they have to. And and that's the skills that those people had. And that's why I love what I'm doing on the leadership stuff, about just drawing that out. And it made me change the way I did things. And
Well, you also, for those who haven't had the privilege of understanding the program, there's a mentorship program, a mentor-mentee. And I put my name down to be a mentor, and I ended up with a police officer as my mentee. So when you set this up, it kind of gives the police force an ability to see into different worlds as well, doesn't it, from that leadership perspective?
It does, and that's the beauty about the Southwest Leaders is we don't team up anyone with the same organisation. Because what I did a mentor program when I was in the police a number of years ago, and I was teamed up with another copper, and so I had the blue lens on, they had the blue lens on, and you spoke about what we saw just in our realm, and so yeah, the beauty about our program, and others do it too, but team up with someone else, and it gives you, as you know, you have so much diverse way of thinking at looking at things when you have those conversations with someone outside the organisation. And I guess the best thing about being teamed up with a copper, Names, is you can get out of speeding tickets and stuff like that.
She's gone to a different department. She's gone to another station up in Norseman. So I lucked out, mate. I lucked out. But no, and also as well as getting out of speeding tickets, being a mentor in itself is really beneficial, because although I started as a mentor to help and serve her, the amount of learning that she's done within me, and the more that she grows, I've actually found in the last couple of sessions, she's been mentoring me. So what's going on, Gnomes? Have you thought of this? And she's coaching me at the same time. It's just beautiful the way it's worked.
Yeah. And that's the best thing about that, and even the stuff we do on the side as well. And I'm sure it's the same for you. Every time we do a session, every time we do something, even if we're organising it, it's just a learning experience, isn't it? And the ones who actually think they're the Grand Poobah when it comes to leadership or whatever, they're the ones who have that closed mindset and the like. So yeah, that's why. Like, I'm learning every day, and I love hearing from other people, because you just walk away with some great snippets and like, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you create a good culture? Leadership is a big component in serving, but what would you say is the key elements of how you create a good culture in your teams?
Well, I think first of all, it's about confronting what needs to be confronted. So if you talk about culture, everyone has a culture in wherever they are, but it might be a great culture, it might be a real crap culture, it might be in between. And if it's a really bad one, I put it down to people aren't confronting what makes up the culture around the norms, the values, the way we communicate, and all that type of thing too. So I think first and foremost, and I always say that when you start to try and address anything at all around culture, you have to address about yourself first with that emotional intelligence. You can't hope to change people for the better if you haven't had a crack at doing it for yourself first. That's why I said anyway. So it's about, if you want to talk about culture, let's talk about self-reflection first and where you're at. And then when you talk about team culture, it's about actually getting everyone part of it. You can't play favourites. You can't just have your purple circle and the like. You've got to involve everyone. And there's bigger too, and about it goes out to how you recruit people. About, I always say I've made mistakes in the past about, and it hasn't helped team culture, where I recruit mini-me's or people that are the same way of thinking, and it doesn't help. It goes back to, again, about having that closed mindset. So it's about recruiting people who are going to challenge not only the team, but challenge yourself, and what do they bring and things like that. But it's about also, and it's really hard even in policing circles, and because we've always been a bit paramilitary, so to speak, and we're getting better. But it's about when we have discussions, when we have team meetings, put culture at the start, put people at the start of it. And so before you get to talking about crime stats and traffic results and FTE and equipment and housing or whatever, and then don't do all that and then say, oh, by the way, how are you all going? Because then you're sending the message, you know what, that's really important. So to me, about how you create a team culture, the best one is, it's, if it's all about people, make it all about people. Sorry,
I love what you said about that mini-me, because I think once you've done the work within yourself, you don't need the mini-me's anymore, right? So I see leaders that have they're either mini-me's or the ego strokers, right? And that's who they employ around them. And someone challenges them, it triggers them, and they just can't function properly. But when you get to that point where you've worked on yourself, you're looking for those challenges, aren't you? Because that's going to help you grow as well as you helping them.
Yeah, you don't want to just have that fixed or get to the point where there's a fixed mindset. You've got to have the growth mindset, and it gets exciting when it happens. And when I think we all look back on, we can all say, you know, where was the best place you ever worked? And it's always after you leave a place, you just realise how good it was. And I put it down to it's a perfect storm of you have the best leader, the best coach, and you have the best supervisors, you have the best people. You're always going to have a couple of challenging people or whatever, but those times we had the best is because people were, you know, when you weren't there, people were still picking up on what was right and what was wrong, and things were being called out and the like and things like that. It's a way you create the culture, and if you're really, really effective, the legacy you leave is when you leave, that culture is really strong. You know, it just doesn't fall over just because you've gone. So
And I like how you said, you know, the culture's there. It just might not be what you want it to be. It's not something that's not there. And I say the same about leadership, right? If you're not leading your team, someone is. So you've got to step up and make sure you're in the space leading it where you need to be. And the kind of the same with culture, right? You want to lead that to where you want it to be, not just have it as something that's developing itself.
Yeah, I think we've all experienced too, where we worked somewhere where the person in authority wasn't the leader.
Yeah.
And they were either absent just by they weren't there, or they were absent in not doing what they needed to do.
Yep.
And we relied on people below. And those good cultures that we create, that's when we have leadership at all levels, where people are stepping up and being the leader. So we're not just having a leader and followers, we're having leaders and leaders. And that is the best time to be in places. And but it's all about keeping it. As I said, it's the legacy that everyone leaves there by creating it better for the people that follow. And
So you were talking about reflecting inward earlier on, which is a big passion of mine. Can you tell me what's the biggest obstacle that you've had to overcome, and how did you do that, or how did that result in inward reflection?
I think I didn't really do a lot of reflection at all until I probably went over as a participant on that first program in 2010. And it was quite confronting because you don't want to admit things aren't quite right. You know, one thing that I ask people is tell me what really peeves you in terms of how leaders are, or someone you work with or whatever, and you'll fill up a whiteboard of all these things about people that are rude, dismissive, playing favourites, indecisive and the like, and you fill up the whole. And then you ask the group, put up your hands, who's doing one of those right now? And none will go up. And then you say, I'll give you another 10 seconds of think music. And the hands will say, mine included. And so reflection is confronting. But it's working out what the best way for you to do that is. And, you know, my way is I never used to write a reflection journal, and I started doing that. And I don't do it every day, but I just need to actually recognise there's clearly some things that I always go on about the start, stop, keep. What is it I'm going to start doing, stop doing? And we do that in our teams as well. But it's confronting to actually get at that stage. And the way I see it is that there's people that are ready to go with the reflection. They're up on the line and they're ready to step forward and do that. There's others that are kind of like stepping a bit, and some of us just need a bit of a push to get us into that thing. And that's what happened to me. And once I did it, you know, once you accept that you don't know everything, and you know, and when we talk about recruiting, it's about recruiting people that know more than you. That's so I found it was quite confronting. But once I started doing it, and when you start reflecting, and when you actually do it properly and authentically and for all the right reasons and the like, people see that.
Yeah, and they do.
We all know that those people who are really authentic, and going back to those people that were people considered great leaders because of the personal skills they had, the human skills, that's because they picked up on what was right and what was wrong, and made changes. So reflection it's easy to say, but it's hard to do for a lot of us. And as I said, it can be confronting. There's people that sit down with someone and say, tell me how I'm going, how you think I'm going. Secret is, don't pick your mate and don't pick someone that's going to tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
When you go and speak to someone that's going to give it to you between the eyes, it's hard, but it's a good thing to do. And because a lot of the things that they'll say, it, you've got a sense of it. Sometimes you just need to hear it from someone else, and but it's what you do about it that is the most important bit.
Yeah, and I think I think I've been doing self-reflection for so long, and you think you're good at something until you realize you're not, right? So I ask for feedback all the time because I love this, and sometimes the feedback is that raw that initially I go, oh, what do they know? And then I have to stop myself and go, no, look again. And I look again and there's gold nuggets everywhere. So we all get triggered by it. It's just knowing that that's a trigger and pushing through it, right? And then finding out where the gold lies.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's what you do about it. That's the most important thing. And how good is it when you do something about it? It's like when you one of the things that, I hate confrontation. And unless you're a Docker supporter, then I'll really go for it and something like that. But I've always hated confrontation. I've got better at it.
Yeah.
It's like when you deal with self-reflection, you make change. It's like dealing with, when you start confronting things, when you do something and it's been really good to deal with it, you just go, oh, why didn't I do that sooner? And I look at that about reflection as well. Some of the things I put myself through because I wouldn't deal with it, couldn't deal with it or whatever. When I finally got to a point where, you know what, I've got to get better at that. And each time you do something like that, it's a lot easier. And
it keeps banging on your door until you open the door, right?
Yeah.
And so if you could, looking back, like I also have this belief that although even when sometimes we're in this big obstacle and these big challenges in front of us, they've always got some role they play. And there's something to be grateful for when you look back. So do you have maybe, I'm saying 5, but 3 to 5 challenges that you can see through your life that ended up turning out to be beneficial and that you have gratitude for?
Yeah, I can. And this, I'll say this, I'm a big tough copper, so hopefully I don't get too emotional when I say this.
Yeah.
My biggest challenge in life, and I'll say this, we go to work each day, and I look at what my life, nothing I do in my job is as challenging as in my personal life. And I reckon that'd be the same for a lot of people. We have so many other issues in our life that work stuff doesn't even measure up to. I've got a son who's intellectually disabled, and he has made me the best person that I can be. He's made my daughters the best people they can be, and my wife as well. Nothing I confront in this job, and there's been some challenging stuff, but nothing I confront in this job comes even close to the challenges and the stress and the like that I have in my personal life. Things are really good. I don't want to say that I'm a basket case or whatever. No. My young bloke Mitch has made me the man I am today. So nothing so I actually attack work like, you don't have to be in that situation, but a lot of us are. That's why it's so critical about the self-reflection. When you actually work out what triggers you and whatever, a lot of it is in the background and the like is what I'm saying. So my challenge has been that, and it's made me a better copper, a better person, and ultimately I'd like to hope, because I'm in a position of authority, a better leader. And I still make little mistakes now and again, but they're not bad ones. But I hope that makes sense. But I just think that personally, we're in our private lives less than we are at work each day. Yeah. Once we work out us and where we are, and we start working on us as better people, not better leaders, because when you become a better person, you just become a better leader. You create better teams and things like that. So for me, that's the biggest challenge I've ever had. And I'm blessed to have the family I have. And as I said there, now there's been challenges at work, where I've had to really step up and things like that. And I've had to accept that I'm not good in that area. So rather than just play safe and be comfortable, I've had to actually do things. I went and worked in New South Wales for 12 months. So, and I've gone and worked in remote communities and things like that. I've really been challenged, but you know what? I just kept adding to the toolkit with skills, whether they be interpersonal, whether they be cross-jurisdictional, cross-organisational, and whatever. Yeah. And you know, and it always comes back to just being a better person, because no matter what the situation is, if you're dealing with a difficult conversation with a colleague, if you're dealing with a difficult conversation with a customer, if you're dealing with a difficult conversation managing up or whatever, you're in a better position if you work on what your skills you need to, and don't ignore it. But and out of that, I just worked out, you don't play safe, you don't play comfortable. Keep looking for opportunities. Like you know, we've met now because of the program and the work you're doing, and I've seen you get up and talk at our leadership program full day and things like that. If you don't step outside the safety of your own little world, there's so many things you're missing out on. So look, you know, we say, how do you deal with challenges? Look for the challenges, because they make you so much better person, and ultimately a better leader.
Yeah. And, you know, stepping out of the comfort zone is something that I've really tried to push myself for. And I remember, and I just remembered this morning, it's going a little bit off tangent, but I feel like I'm going to share it. When I was younger, I lived in this house that had like a patio with a drop off, no railings back in those days, right? Because railings were too safe. And I remember jumping out there and pretending there was a crowd. And I remember singing and dancing and talking to them and all this sort of stuff. And then, you know, get caught by a brother or sister or an aunt or an uncle, and they go, "What are you doing? Oh, don't be so silly." And just sort of crushing me down. And, you know, then to come now, and for speaking for me, I feel is natural, but for a bit, it wasn't natural. Because I'd been boxed into this little world of thinking that I shouldn't be doing it. And so even if we're born innately with stuff, we still need to push through comfort zones to be able to go and display that to the world, right?
Exactly. And I think even, you know, most of my career after 92, I became an officer in charge for the first time, and I stayed an officer in charge, or then became a commissioned officer, and now a district superintendent. So I've always been in positions of authority, so to speak. Yep. But I had a real problem with speaking up in meetings and saying, and you know, you have what they need to hear or whatever. But I had this. I didn't feel good about that, and so that's one of the things that I reflected on, and I like to think I've got better at. But that's what it's about. And if we just get in that realm of like taking that first step about where we're at, where are you right now, and we all know, because I always tell everyone, there's not a single person, me included, even right now, that doesn't want to change something about themselves as a person. Or as a leader. Not a single person on this planet. And if you say that's not the case, then you're far down. You know, got a fair way to go. You're like the Storwell gift, where you're a back marker and the other people are right up in front of you. So but there's not a single person. So but it always comes back to me. It's just exciting to do. Yeah. And it gets confronting, and it's hard sometimes, but it's exciting. And if you think like that, I don't want to be one of those doom and gloom people, and woe is me, the job's effed, and I got no time for that. And you know, you're only on this planet once, unless you're someone who believes in reincarnation or something. I don't know, but you're only on this planet once, so why not make it the best?
We only get this life once, right? So this life we're handed right now is only for once. And I love that about not a single person doesn't want to change something about themselves, but there's so many people that won't step into that vulnerable space to either admit it or follow it and challenge it, right? So they sit there and they turn into this space where they've got regrets, or they've got hate themselves for it, and all these sorts of things, because they just won't be vulnerable enough to go, hey, I'm not perfect and I want to change.
If you're enjoying this podcast, and you want Naomi or any of her guests featured on your podcast or as a keynote speaker at your next event, you'll find their contact details included in the show notes. If you'd like to learn more about how you can work with Naomi individually or as part of your strategy to improve leadership in your business, then review the courses, offers and services at getupandgroconsulting.com.au.
Yeah, and this comes back to that culture again about how do you help those people make that progression, because if you create the best team culture where it's okay to feel like that, but more than that, it's okay to talk about it, and it's okay for each other to help each other and do that. You know, probably people that find themselves in that position, they've been in places where it's not encouraged, and it's, you know, it's just come in, clock out, you know, morning Sam, morning Bill, see you later, and that's it. And so, yeah, and this comes back to, and it's not only the responsibility of the leaders, it's the responsibility of everyone to create that.
Yeah. And you know, one of my passions is workplace psychological safety. So that just fits right into that. And I think some companies or places think they have workplace psychological safety, but are far from it, purely because they're not having that self-reflection. Or people are too scared to speak up and go, hey, that makes me feel uncomfortable. You know, their culture's not there to support it.
Yeah, and probably that leads to, you know, the biggest challenge I have is helping my people and even helping me. No, what I worked out a while ago that if you ever come to our boardroom, which is a pretty special place because it's got paintings of fallen officers, it's a really special place. It's called the Pearson Room after Jamie Pearson. He was the last Southwest officer killed on duty in 2004. So our room is named after Jamie Pearson, and a really popular copper. And his mum and dad still comes every year to the police remembrance ceremony in Bunbury every September.
Wow.
But on the wall in the boardroom is the Southwest District, and it's got duty, team, integrity, and care, which are the 4 values of WA Police. And they're so important, and it's there for a reason for us to see that. But the way I explain to my people is that we've got our values, so why do we still have problems with people sometimes fall over in the way they act, the way they behave, and the like? And I put that down to us not being true to ourselves. So underneath those values are mine, and when I induct people in the district, before they get here, I share it with them, and then I get them to come and see me, and we stand in the ballroom and look at the 3 words: exceptional, ethical, and brave. You know, and I tell them, whatever you do, if you just be true to yourself, because if we're actually really honest about that, we'll be exceptional because it's the right thing to do. And you know, near enough's not good enough, and we're exceptional in the way we do business. And then the ethical, it's about, you know, we're supposed to do things right, but it's about doing the right thing in everything we do. But that last word is the most crucial, I tell them, and that's brave. Now, and I said it's about jumping into burning cars and saving people, and we've done that, and my people have been rewarded or acknowledged for that as well. But I'd say it's more about the workplace. It's about being, if we're all brave about how we actually are in the workplace, places are healthier, happier, more productive, and you have that I want to work there or I don't want to leave type scenario happening. And in terms of police, in a policing perspective, then I'd say I don't care how many crooks you lock up or how many tickets you hand out. If you treat your colleagues worse than you treat a crook, I don't want you. I don't want you. And so that brave is so important. So it's about what's really important to the team, what's really important to you. And it comes down to, if you live your personal core values, you will meet your organisational values. It's or at least it's so much easier to do that. And I think that's where we let ourselves down. Sometimes we talk a really good talk sometimes, but we don't always walk it.
Yeah. And I think as leaders as well, sometimes how we can serve the members around us and the people around us is helping them find those values, because sometimes they're just society, wherever we are, creates this image of us that needs to present, and we lose who we are, right? We lose those values and that internal stuff.
Exactly. And that's where that start, stop, keep is a really good team exercise. And we've done it with teams here and other places I've worked as well. You know, if you sit down with a team and say, what do we need to stop doing that's not helpful to being the best place it could be?
Yeah.
And I'll talk about it. And you get it down to the favorite three or whatever. Well, how are we going to do that? Come up with a couple of actions. When are we going to do it by? Great. Now, what are we going to keep doing? What's working really well for us? And they'll recognise it, and then let's keep doing that. Then the same with start. What do we need to start doing? Now, it doesn't matter the size of your organisation or your team. You'll come up with a one-pager. So when you have your team meetings, remember this, our action plan. And that's how they're the little 1% you do in changing culture, but making it clear to everyone. That's what we're about. And so when you're not there, someone else will say, hey, that's not what we're about. Remember, this is.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's that whole thing, right? So it's creating people with integrity,
Yeah.
that doing the right thing even when no one's watching. And I find that out of all values in general populations, that's probably the one that's missing the most. You know, people do things because they feel like they need to impress someone, or they want to follow the rules when someone's watching. But when no one's watching, they don't realize that still having that integrity is part of that inner work that then gives you the confidence to go and approach the world.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. It gives you a license to be diverse, to be innovative, and you're giving license permission to lead to your team. And that's that perfect storm thing happening. And
Yeah, no. So I think we've covered about 3 obstacles in that conversation. Have you got another one that in specific that you could chat about? An obstacle that ended up you becoming grateful for?
I think just the obstacle I had was that I've touched on it already a bit, but I can't understate it enough. The obstacle I had in 30 years of policing, I just talked police. I just talked nothing. That was my world, and that was it. And, I think the obstacle was, as soon as I actually saw the value of connecting and whatever, it was just like the lights, you know, and I've written a newsletter about it before, and it was like I started seeing colour instead of just black and white, you know. So the obstacle that I removed was just my inability to look at things from a different perspective, looking at from a person from another organisation, looking at so I think that was by far one of the best things I ever did. And I think that when you do that, it just flows on. There's so many things it does for you in creating you as a better person, as a leader. And I think I'm starting to sound like a broken record about it, but I think that's the biggest obstacle you can do. Yeah, is just take off the ball. I put up a slide sometimes of the ball and chain. You're walking around just dragging this because things are holding you back. As soon as you cut that off, you break free. And in the Southwest, I've met you and had conversations with you. I've met people like Danny Griffin and all the crew at the chamber. I've met so many different organisations that I would normally meet if they were involved in a bushfire, in the COVID response or whatever. And now me and my colleagues in WA Police in the Southwest have got so many connections. It doesn't matter what it's about, whether it's an emergency, whether it's normal business, or whether it's just a growth conversation. You can just pick up and you have all these things. So I think that was by far the best thing that's ever happened to me. And the good thing about it, it's so friggin' easy to do. It's so friggin' easy.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you mentioned I'd like to go back and touch on a little bit more is connections. And I was speaking, one of my previous interviews was with a musician, and the contacts that he had in starting up his music school and how high caliber they were. And that just doesn't happen by accident, in my opinion. You know, the contacts you have and the connections you have, in my opinion, are really high caliber as well. How do you attribute running into those people and connecting with them? Like, community is so important to help our growth and to help our learning and support and development. How did you build the community that you've built?
I think it's because there's like-minded people out there, which is really easy. And like when I started the newsletter back in 2016, I did it when I was over the AIPM, when I was over there as a visiting fellow. And they told me that while you're here, the Charles Sturt University's here, and so you should do your Masters of Leadership. Now, I'm not an academic. I failed miserably year 11 at Mirrabooka High School, and some people know I grew up in Nullamara, or Knucklemara as we used to call it, and so I was never a scholar or whatever. So I said, look, I can't do any academic while I'm here. So I said, I'll do this newsletter, and sent it out to 20 people back in WA in my job, and then it slowly went out, and then other people wanted to see it, and so just doing some simple thing like that. And I joined this thing called LinkedIn to put it out there, and and then it just took off, and now we're up to nearly getting towards 3,000 people globally.
Oh wow!
That get it. It's police, emergency services, because I took the blinkers off. Police, emergency services, business, industry, community sectors, anyone at all. And go out, and from that you get connections, and so I've gone from having these online conversations just with police and a few others to now a heap of people from all across Australia and overseas as well. And we saw Kate Vivian yesterday, but
she was great.
We had Chris Cohen, police
He's
chief
good too.
South Carolina, and talk. And next month we've got Sean Picton from Royal Gibraltar Police, and as soon as you start just opening up your opportunities to have conversations, and when I have meetings now, if someone says something that resonates with me, you make a point of just afterwards just connecting and say, hey, you said that, could you tell me a bit more about that? And then straight away, new connection, new ideas and that, and then you then become part of their network, which then increases your network. So connections cannot be understated in terms of personal and professional development and growth. It's the best way to do it, and that's certainly been the case for me. And
and I love that you share that, because I've actually reached out to Chris as well, and a couple of the speakers that I've seen in the Leadership 30s and Leadership 60s, and some of them have agreed to come on and be guests on the podcast, right? And so if I hadn't have taken that first step and been a mentor rather, that whole world wouldn't have opened up for me. And I think that's something that we don't always give credit to, is those little steps that we take to serve can open up a whole world of serving back to you without you even realizing. Yeah,
without a doubt. I mean, that if you do get Chris, the one that he did for us was amazing, and more people need to listen to him and how he has a people focus, don't they?
Yes, he's brilliant. And Sean as well. I reached out to Sean as well. So hopefully I could share with them.
Well, the last newsletter I had Tracy from New Zealand Police, and she's going to be a future one as well. And I encourage you to connect with her, because her story is amazing. It is truly amazing, and how she started her career and what the challenges she had, and a bit like Kate as well, I think, and just what she did about it. But without connections, you'd never ever meet these people. I wouldn't have met you, and like I said before, and that's the exciting part about this journey we're on. And you just, I could have finished my career just locking up crooks and making sure my people locked up crooks, got the gold watch to the end, and go off in the sunset, and that would have been it. But I'm coming towards the end of my career, and I'm having the best time, just through doing this.
And you're really great at converting supporters for the Eagles, right? So that's why I was already an Eagles supporter. I didn't need to be converted, but anyone that speaks at one of these events, that's one of the prerequisites, right?
They are, and I send them over a shirt and a cap, and Chris and Sean, and Scott Tillmer, he's a great one to talk to as well. Naomi, I'll introduce you to him, but they all sent me back. They've been converted. I'm going to take over the world with Eagle supporters. The only pretext in 2023, I said, please don't Google them and look at the ladder.
Yeah, they're probably not being as well as they have in the past, right?
Yeah,
that's awesome. So have you always enjoyed success?
Have I always enjoyed
success?
Yeah, I have, but like I said, I've enjoyed more family-wise and things like that. And so I think you were there when Kate showed what her priorities were yesterday, and I think, and I'm the same. I think we all are to some degree. But having said that, one of my self-reflections are I feel really bad about. I've got 4 beautiful kids, and I thank my wife every day for bringing them up, because Dad wasn't always there, because I was always at work and things like that. But so I'm really now enjoying the success of that. And one of the things that, just a side one, you don't want to see your kids grow up. You want to squash them down and keep them little.
Don't you?
Like that. But I'll tell you what, no one told me you'll enjoy socialising with your kids as adults, and it is the best fun. I look forward now to doing that all the time. So success, I don't know whether I've been totally successful in my career. I've certainly achieved some certain things. I still see as I'm still a work in progress.
Yeah.
And to be successful, I want to just help others become better people and better leaders. And I think I've still got some work to do that in my own organisation, and helping others too. So that side of things, family, tick. I'm not successful, but as a professional, still a work in progress. Still got some work to do, and we'll see how we go.
Well, and I think with family though, sometimes we're a bit hard on ourselves and we don't realise that they're just like a career. They are still a learning journey as well, and what they teach us. And I've got 2 children with quite a big age gap. And when my son was growing up, I was very career orientated. And I still am now, but because I'm in my own business with my daughter, I get to pick her up from school and drop her off. And like, I always made sure I was at the big things like assemblies and sports carnivals, but being the one that picks her up from school and hearing how her day was and she's excited to share, I look back and I missed all of that with my son. Now, I still would have shown him how to have drive and be committed and disciplined, so he didn't miss out. But we don't realize how much they've got to teach us, right? And how when we grow, we show up differently for them.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. No, so we had our 3 kids pretty close apart. My 2 oldest daughters, and they're only 1 year apart, and Mitch only followed a couple of years later, and then we had this big gap.
Yep.
To our youngest, I had a 40th birthday present come along, and there was a big gap over 10 years, I think, and so and it's been smell the roses type thing. With my little one, and who's now in just about to turn 22. So but it's our priorities, family is everything, and so it's so important. Then if we can become the better version of us, we're just going to be healthier and happier, and that's the secret of it. So successful family wise, I'm having a ball. Work wise, I'm challenged, but you know what? It's not the be all end all. But I'm gonna have fun doing it. Yeah. And we can have fun in this job and things like that. That's the most important thing. To be successful in your work, make sure you're having fun and you're enjoying it. More importantly, making sure that your people have fun and enjoying it. When the job's on, the job's on, but just make it fun, and it's all about people and all about culture.
Yeah, I was at a client site today doing some work, and one of their rules was, be serious enough to get the job done, but don't forget to stop and have fun. And I thought that was just mint, right?
Yeah. How good is it workplaces where you hear laughter? Yeah. And then you get the knobs, or knobs are a technical term for a bad person, I guess. But you have the knobs come out and say, stop laughing, stop, and they can it. The best workplaces are where you hear fun and laughter. Yeah. And as I said, as long as the job's done and that's great, because those workplaces are usually the ones that people do what need to be done because they want to, because of the person that's leading them, rather than because they have to, because I've got this knob up in the front desk making us with the whip and all that. They're the ones that leave earlier than they probably would normally. They're the ones that people, there's always turnover and the like, and have fun, laugh.
Yeah, and that loyalty that people get. I mean, then it becomes less of a job and more of a service then, right? Because when you're having fun, then it doesn't seem like you're working, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I do a few of my own practices every day to just try and connect with myself and be there. I know you mentioned journaling before. You said it wasn't something you do all the time, but is there anything that you sort of pick up that you know is something that you do that centers you, like a daily, weekly practice?
Yeah. Well, I don't do it all the time, but only when I need to. But I'm a big fan of mindfulness and the breathing practices. There's a session I do on resilience and the like, where I had a shit week in the southwest in the 90s, where I was in charge of a police station. We lost 7 people in 7 days, and it was really draining. And we lost 3 people in one incident and 4 people in another incident. In 2 single incidents. And I had the amygdala hijack. I had one of those on the way back to the station, and to deal with briefing up and things like that. And I was driving back to my station in Dunsborough, and it was around New Year's, and there was a lot of people in town. A little toddler from a front lawn where they were having drinks and a barbie ran out in front of the police car. And I don't remember stopping, but I remember just being in the middle of the road, just trembling and screaming every perverse word I could think of. And Dad was walking over with the stubby saying, "Sorry, mate," and I let him know what I think. If the baby had been any closer, I think I would have kicked the baby like a soccer ball. I was so dealing with so much stress and sadness and the like, and I had that moment, and I had to go. I got in the car and drove off, and I was still shaking, and I parked behind the street away from the cop shop to let myself calm down, and that was, we talk about PTSD and things like that, but that really affected me. So now I work out this breathing techniques about mindfulness, and I find it really good for me that if I'm going to go into a stressful situation, if I've just dealt with a stressful situation, shut the door, and there's certain things that I do around that are really short to do. You can do them driving as well, but it just takes the edge off and things like that. I learn it from a bad experience like that, and when I say in the 90s and 7 people, there's probably people in the southwest that might hear that will know about the time I'm talking about. It was really sad, and I show a video where I was on TV and the impact, and you can see, and I show the media I did on Channel 7 where I was looking sad and down. And then shortly after that, this thing happened, and so that's what I do about looking after myself. I should lose some weight and get healthier. My blood pressure is all that type of stuff, and that. But that's what I do. I just try and center myself a bit, and like I said before, it doesn't matter what I do in this job. It's not as bad or as important as what I face in my personal life, and that's the way I look at it. If you stop thinking about works, everything, and whatever, you forget and you distract away, or you neglect your family or whatever. Nothing we do in our professional life is as important as our priorities. But if we look after ourselves, whether it be through mindfulness or something else or whatever, you become healthier, you become happier, and you can meet the challenges. And that's what I see.
I can. Sorry, excuse me. I can relate to that whole work not being more important than family, but sometimes, like in my past, I've been caught up in that. So one of my things is wanting to serve, but sometimes I serve at too high a level, right? And it's at the detriment of other stuff. So when I stopped in the corporate role and I went into my own business, the first 3 months for me was such a struggle that I actually wasn't like giving 110% every minute of every day. And I was kind of like, oh, I've got no purpose. I've got no worth. So if you do that for 40, 50 years and you retire, that's going to leave you in such a lost space, right? If you can't learn to get that counterbalance right.
Well, I think too, one of the things that I did learn was the ability to say no.
Yeah.
And particularly when you go into a new role or a first-time leader and things like that, it's, we just got to learn to say no. I think one of the my favourite slides and quotes that I use is, if you want to make everyone happy, don't be a leader, sell ice cream.
Yes, I saw that.
And,
I loved that. That was so good. Yeah.
That's one of my favourite sayings. And as a new leader, as a new manager, that's what my problem. I made it hard for myself by the inability to say no. And the other thing I make the point about is, a good leader. It's about having the ability to disappoint people at a level they can absorb. And that's about having the courage to be disliked, about making those hard decisions. But I had to learn to start saying no. If someone came to me and said, "Boss, I really need this time off, but no one else can swap with me," and then I'd say, "Oh, mate, I'll do it for you. It's okay. I'll take, swap with me." Not having spoken to my wife, and I'd always put others and work before me and before my family, and so that's one of the things I learned. Learn to say no, and if you want to make everyone happy, don't be a leader. Sell ice cream.
and like Kate Vivian said yesterday as well, right? It's about being kind, not nice.
Exactly.
You got to, you can still get performance management conversations or those critical conversations and be kind about them. Yeah. You would avoid them if you're too nice, right? They just don't happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. When you should deal with people, and as a new leader, I was the same. If someone came in and I had to have a difficult conversation, I'd work it up, and then I said, "Oh, I'll do it tomorrow," and then tomorrow would come, and I'll do it on Monday, and then I'll do it at the end of the week, and then they go off for a few days. I'll do it, and meanwhile I'll be telling everyone, "No, don't you worry, I'm going to tell them." and they can see the inaction, and when you do finally deal with it, you just go, "Oh, thank God I did that." But why did I do it sooner? Why did I do it sooner?
Exactly. So if someone wanted to reach out and make contact with Geoff Stewart, how would they find you? You mentioned LinkedIn before, but how else could they reach out and make connection with you?
Ring 000 and ask for don't ring 000. Don't ring 000.
Hello, is Geoff there, please?
Look, LinkedIn's a really good way to do that. Probably the easiest way. Look, I work at Bunbury in the complex at Bunbury, and that's so. But I encourage anyone wants to reach out. LinkedIn's a really good way to do that, and they can see some of the stuff that I post around either the newsletters or other material. If they want to be invited to go on one of the online sessions and just grab a coffee and sit back and listen and be involved, they'd be more than happy for that to happen too. But I always look forward to having new connections and new conversations.
Yeah, and I totally recommend that. Reach out to Geoff and jump on the newsletter. And if you do get an opportunity to join in with the Leadership 30 or Leadership 60 that Geoff runs, definitely take him up on it, because that's where I've made some new connections and had some really great learnings in those community environments.
Yeah. And if you don't support the Eagles and support some other AFL team, particularly the Fremantle Dockers, I might take a while to get back to you.
There's a disclaimer. All right, Geoff, well, thank you very much for joining us today. Really appreciate having you on the show.
Thanks, Nams. Thank you.
Thanks for joining in and listening to this episode of Catching the Octopus podcast. It's been great having you here. And if you'd like to go and like and subscribe and maybe even leave a 5-star rating if you think it's worth it, I'd really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.